Hi, I'm Joseph Angier here in the Solon College Sports Network studio with Jake Way. We're going to talk about a little bit of high school football, NFL football, the playoffs, where we see who's going to win the AFC and NFC championship games and the Super Bowl. So to start off, we're going to talk about Vacaville High School season, how they did this year. So how did Vacaville do this year, Jake?
Well, Vacaville had another great season, finishing second in the Monticello Empire League, posting a 10-3 record. The Bulldogs ended up making it all the way to their semifinals game, where they would end up losing to Grant High School, who would end up winning the whole tournament. Grant had a great year this year.
And with Wilsey Wood Wildcats taking third place in the MELs with a 7-5 overall record, winning their first playoff league game since 18 years ago against Burbank, 34-33, with a good 1 minute drill all the way down to the end zone, throwing a 2-point conversion, which was a risky play by Carlos Moraz, who has been with the Wilsey Wood Wildcats for 6 years and took that team to the playoffs 3 times. Now, Jake, we're going to talk about some of the players. So let's start off with Marcus Howard, the QB for Wilsey Wood.
Well, Wood's offense, they run a spread offense, so their whole team runs around their quarterback, Marcus Howard, who had a great season, posting just over 3,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. He did also have 147 yards rushing to go along with 4 rushing touchdowns.
And with a good quarterback, you need a good running back in Damon Lewis, who had 1,132 yards and 12 touchdowns rushing. He also had 94 receiving yards and had 5 touchdowns receiving in only 7 games. He also had 1,299 rushing yards his sophomore year for the varsity with 17 touchdowns, which is a pretty good job for a sophomore in varsity for his first year. So we're hoping to see him as a senior developing really well. And now we also have his backup, Jermaine Lewis, who when Damon got hurt, came in, stepped up really well, had 833 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. Now we're going to talk about Tayon Cunningham.
Tavion Cunningham is Wilsey Wood's standout sophomore wide receiver who led the MEL in receiving yards with just shy of 1,400 yards. He had 10 touchdowns, and he had a great season, the best season that a receiver has ever had at Wilsey Wood High School. And on the defensive side, Jordan Boyd, the linebacker, had a fantastic season with 162 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, and 3 interceptions.
And now let's look at Wilsey Wood's future quarterback behind Marcus Howard next year, who is only a freshman right now, who's going to be a sophomore next year, and Carson Strong. He's going to be playing tight end next year for the Wilsey Wood Wildcats, and then he's going to take over for Marcus as the quarterback. Now we're going to switch over to the Vaca High players, starting off with Chad Hecking.
Reinstating that Chad Hecking has had just a fantastic season. He has had 1,149 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and just shy of 300 rushing yards with 5 touchdowns. He had a great season.
And with a good quarterback, he also needs a good receiver. With Reed Ramirez, who had 303 yards receiving with 5 touchdowns. He also played defense as a safety, where he had 33 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions. Now also let's go another running back for DeMonte Moore, who had 132 carries with 1,168 rushing yards and 11 TDs.
And really the key for Vacaville is going to be getting young sophomore running back Cassius Reynolds the ball more. He only had 30 carries last year, but he did have 245 yards and 5 touchdowns. He has been great for Vaca High, and he has 2 more years starting on varsity, so he could be something very special for the Vacaville Bulldogs.
And now just a few highlights on some players that will be coming back also next year is Chris Ward, who's a wide receiver for the Vacaville Bulldogs with only 33 yards receiving and 1 touchdowns. And the quarterback for Vacaville will be Gabe Carventis, who played 1 game with 55 yards passing and 1 TD, which is pretty good for 1 game as a junior coming in at Vacaville Bulldogs, who also likes to run the ball a lot. So now we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about NFL football and our predictions for the playoffs and where they're going to see them and who's going to be in the Super Bowl.
Hi, I'm Remington Green, and this is my broadcasting partner, Kayla Gibbons. Today we're going to talk about one of the most hands-on classes you'll ever consider taking.
We're
we're talking about sports broadcasting. After everything's said and done, this class has taught me how to be involved, and it's given me experience in the field of sports broadcasting. It's taught me how to work behind a microphone, it's taught me how to work a camera, and it's ultimately taught me how to be a people person and talk to coaches and teachers and players. It's given me involvement because this is a 2-year institution, and kids come and go, and there's kind of a hard way to be involved in such a community that's always fluctuating. It's giving me the opportunity, like I mentioned, to talk to coaches about their players and their team and what do they look for in the future, and to teachers about what their plans are for, their classes that they have. And ultimately, this class has given me an experience that I would never take back.
Definitely. I'll definitely have to fully agree with Remington on that. This class has benefited me in many ways. I came into the class, it's my first semester here at Solano. I'm a comm major. I had no clue what I would be doing in the class. I was nervous. Oh no, I have no experience being behind the camera. This class brought me full experience. Poff is a great professor. He works with each student hands-on. You learn so much about doing interviews, working with others in group settings, as well as being there for sports events at the school, such as, basketball games, soccer games. You're fully working hands-on in the field, and it's a great class to be a part of.
At the end of the day, this class really, really, truly shows you what it means to be a sports broadcaster or a cameraman or an electrician guy who's just trying to help us out. And this is an experience, and it's not just a class where you've got textbooks and lectures, but it's something that really gets you involved and really sets you up for something. If this is the future and the major that you want to have, this definitely sets you on the right path.
Definitely. If you're tired of, day-to-day lectures and classes, taking notes, and you want something more hands-on, I definitely recommend that you register for Com 75 Sports Broadcasting in spring 2015.
And we're back talking about NFL playoff pictures now. We're going to start off with the Patriots. Jake, how are the Patriots looking so far this year?
Well, the New England Patriots are looking up to be one of the best teams in the NFL once again. Tom Brady having another career season with 3,560 yards passing, 30 touchdowns to go along with only 7 interceptions. They've also have 3 running backs that already have 300 yards rushing between those 3. Stephen Ridley with 302 touchdowns, Shane Vereen with 4 touchdowns, along with Jonas Gray, who also has 4 touchdowns. The receiving core is also very good this year. Julian Edelman, the wide receiver, he has had 884 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. The big tight end, Rob Gronkowski, the best tight end in the NFL, has 997 yards, 10 touchdowns. Brandon LaFell, another receiver who has had 753 yards, 7 touchdowns. Rob Ninkovich on the defensive side, 7 sacks. Darrelle Revis and Devin McCourty have 2 interceptions each.
And now we're going to talk about the rival of Tom Brady's team with the Broncos, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has 3,910 yards, 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And his wide receiver, C.J. Anderson, has 594 yards, 4 touchdowns. Hillman with 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. Julius Thomas has 426 yards with 12 touchdowns. Damon Thomas has 1,266 and 10 touchdowns. Emmanuel Sanders has 1,208 yards and 7 touchdowns.
And the Indianapolis Colts have the most prolific offense in the game right now. Andrew Luck having the best season of his career, 4,305 yards, 36 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. Trent Richardson having a bounce-back year with 475 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ahmad Bradshaw had a great year before going out injured with 425 yards and 2 touchdowns. T.Y. Hilton having the best year of his career with 1,300 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. And Colby Fleener, the tight end, has had 650 yards and 6 touchdowns. A great receiving core for a great quarterback in Andrew Luck.
And now let's talk about the Steelers with Big Ben Roethlisberger with 4,529 touchdowns and eight interceptions, having his career year. But with a good quarterback needs a good running back with Le'Veon Bell with 1,900 total yards, 8 total touchdowns. And also we have the big man Antonio Brown and receiver core has 1,375 yards, 11 touchdowns. And Martavis Bryant, who's the second receiver with 435 yards and 7 touchdowns. And the guy who goes downfield the most is Marcus Wheaton with 534 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Another team who's going to sneak into the playoffs as a wild card team is the San Diego Chargers. Phillip Rivers having another solid year, 3,407 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Ryan Matthews, who was hurt for about half the season, has came back strong with 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. Backup running back Brandon Oliver has 432 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's had a great rookie season. Keenan Allen having another solid year with 765 yards and 4 touchdowns. Antonio Gates having a great season. He has 9 touchdowns already. Malcolm Floyd has 5 touchdowns of his own to go 743 yards.
And another team that's going to be in the playoffs is the Bengals with Andy Dalton having 2,891 yards passing and 15 touchdowns with 13 interceptions. Jermaine Hill with 729 yards and 16 touchdowns. Gio Bernard has 557 yards and 5 touchdowns. A.J. Green with 910 yards and 6 touchdowns. And Hamed Sanu with 754 yards and 66 touchdowns. Now we're going to head over to the AFC or the NFC where we're going to talk about the Packers.
The Green Bay Packers are going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, mostly due to Aaron Rodgers' great season. He has 3,652 yards, 35 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. This man is a freak and the best quarterback in the NFL. He also has a great running back with Eddie Lacy having 1,228 total yards, 11 touchdowns. Jordy Nelson also having a stellar year with another over 1,000-yard receiving year. 12 touchdowns for him. Randall Cobb's been solid. He has 980 yards and 10 touchdowns. Rookie Devontae Adams has came out of nowhere to put up 423 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And on the defensive side, Clay Matthews having another great year, posting 5.5 sacks.
And now also with your Super Bowl champs from last year, the Seattle Seahawks, with Russell Wilson with 2,729 yards, passing 17 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. With a good quarterback needs a good running back with Marshawn Lynch with 1,389 total yards and 13 touchdowns. Doug Baldwin, 616 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. Jermaine Kearse, 451 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. And on defense, we have Marco Burnett with 6 sacks, Richard Sherman with 3 interceptions, and Maxwell with 2 interceptions.
Now we're throwing it to the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, them Dallas Cowboys, who Tony Romo not yet choking in Dallas at least. He's had a great season so far, 2,923 yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. DeMarco Murray has had a stellar season with 2,000 total yards, 9 touchdowns. Dez Bryant with another solid season with over 1,000 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns. Jason Witten with another solid year out of him, 500 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. Jeremy Mincey on the other side of the ball has 3 sacks. And that team is just an interception machine as they have 12 team interceptions. Their defense is looking a lot better than everyone thought.
And now the next team is the Saints. With Drew Brees, they can't go wrong. With 3,982 yards passing, 28 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. With Marcus Ingram with 810 yards and 6 touchdowns. Kenny Stills, 714 yards and 3 touchdowns. Marquise Colston with 706 yards and 10 touchdowns. And then Jimmy Graham, the big tight end, right underneath Gronkowski with 695 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns. And Jerry Gallatin on defense with 7 sacks.
Now the Philadelphia Eagles are an interesting team. They lost their starting quarterback halfway through the season. Mark Sanchez now has taken over, and he's actually done fairly well. He has 1,500 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, all of that in only 6 games. LaShawn McCoy having another stellar year with over 1,000 total yards and 4 touchdowns. Jeremy Maclin proven to be a true number 1 receiver in Philadelphia as he's had another over 1,000-yard season and 10 touchdowns. Zach Ertz, the tight end, also having a stellar season with 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. And on the defensive side of the ball, Connor Barwin has 13.5 sacks. Wow.
And now let's talk about the Cardinals, who also have been struggling on the quarterback position with Carson Palmer getting hurt. We have Drew Stanton coming in with 1,602 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in only 8 games. And then we have their good running back with Andrew Ellington with 1,000 yards rushing with 5 touchdowns. Larry Fitzgerald with 692 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. John Brown has 569 yards and 5 touchdowns. Michael Floyd has 592 yards with 4 touchdowns. And also on defense, we have Rashad Johnson with 4 interceptions. Now we're going to talk about who we think will be in the AFC and NFC playoff picture championship game. So, Jake, who do you have for AFC?
For the AFC, I have the New England Patriots playing the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this game will be in New England, so it'll be very cold for Andrew Luck and that great offense. They have played there already once again this year. It'll be very interesting to see how Andrew Luck comes back strong again. And I think that's going to be a great game with 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Going to come right down to the wire.
What about NFC?
For the NFC, I have the Green Bay Packers playing against the Seattle Seahawks, the reigning champs. I think the Packers win this game. The Packers are a much more complete team than the Seahawks in my eyes. They can throw the ball at you. They can run the ball at you. They can stop you on defense. They have great pass rushing linebackers with Julius Peppers and Clay Matthews. Aaron Rodgers, as I've stated before, best quarterback in the NFL. He's got 2 of the best receivers in the NFL. They are the most complete team in the NFL.
Well, I agree with you, the Packers being an NFC playoff game, just like you said, with your good reasons. But instead of the Seattle Seahawks, I have the Arizona Cardinals. They have such a shutdown defense this year, and they also have a really good running game with Ellington. And if you can run the ball in the NFL, you can do anything almost. And then even though they have a quarterback carousel going on right now, Larry Fitzgerald's used to it, and they have another good receiver with Floyd. They're going to get through it. They're going to put some numbers up, and they're going to take the game to the championship game. For the AFC, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Denver Broncos. Yes, Steelers-Broncos. Steelers have a great running game with Le'Veon Bell. Ben Roethlisberger having a career year this year with his passing yards. Antonio Brown is also having a really good year. And with the young wide receiver core also with Wheaton and Bryan, they're going to put up some numbers. And also we cannot forget about Heath Miller, who is also a good tight end for a check down back for Ben Roethlisberger. Their defense is struggling a little bit in the secondary, but that front 7 will not stop rushing that quarterback or taking down that running back. That's how Dick LeBeau always runs things, with a good front 7, really bad secondary. What they've done in the past, they can do it again this year. With the Broncos, Peyton Manning is always a number 1 quarterback every year. Put Peyton Manning on a team, he can take a team to the playoffs. Peyton Manning with Emmanuel Sanders to addition, replacing Eric Decker, was a great addition for the Broncos. He showed his stride coming all from the Steelers to the Broncos, where he put up some great numbers. And also with Julius Thomas going to be back in the playoffs, they're just going to put up some great numbers on tight position. And then we have Demaryius Thomas, who is always stellar for Peyton Manning for the past 2 years he's been playing there. And then they have a shaky running game right now, but where they have 2 running backs with ball going at it. And I can't remember the guy, but they have a good defense in Denver too, where they can sack the quarterback on both ends. Now, Jake, you have the Packers and the Seattle Seahawks going, and you have the Colts and the Patriots. Who are those 4 teams you have in the Super Bowl?
I have the Patriots and the Packers, number 1 seeds. They're the most complete teams in football. The Patriots built a great defense in this offseason, bringing in Darrelle Revis and Brandon Flowers. And their secondary is very good. They played already in Lambeau Field earlier this season. The Packers were able to hold on, but it was a very close game, a great game to watch, and I believe that this will be our Super Bowl. And I believe that the New England Patriots are going to pull this one out. Their defense is just a lot better than the Green Bay Packers defense. Yet the Packers' offense is better than the Patriots' defense. It's just going to be hard to determine at this point in the season who's going to win the Super Bowl. But those are the two teams I have in the Super Bowl.
All right, I have the Arizona Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, a repeat of Super Bowl 43, where the Arizona Cardinals will beat the Packers in the playoffs because they have such a good defense right now. They can take down Aaron Rodgers with the great secondary, and then they also can run the ball against the Packers because the Packers don't really have that great of a secondary on their team. So Larry Fitzgerald can get downfield, and Floyd can as well. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, again, they have such a good running game with Le'Veon Bell. They can run the ball on any team if they wanted to, but Ben Roethlisberger also likes to throw the ball downfield to Antonio Brown. And with that front seven, they can get through any team. With Dick LeBeau as the defense coordinator, all you have to do is get him in the playoffs, and he can take that team to the Super Bowl if he wanted to. All right. Thank you for watching the Solana College Sports Network high school and NFL morning today's show. I am Joseph Angier here with Jake Wade, signing off.